Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Hamzah FreelancingWala and I'm back with another interview. As you guys know, we always come with a new guest. So today our new guest is Miss Ilene. She is a seasonal educator and she is a, a therapist and she is also a wellness mentor. So let's jump right into the conversation and let's get to know more about her. First of all, hey Miss Ilene, how are you doing today?
Fine, and I want to tell you, you pronounce my name Eileen, so it's Eileen, not
Oh, my
Eileen.
my
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just so
For
we go.
my
I'm
sales.
doing great, thank you.
Yep, that's wonderful to know. So thank you so much for giving your precious time. So first of all, I'd love to ask you, what do you think? How would you look back at your childhood, and what would you uh, think that there are the key differences between your current time and your childhood? What are the differences you see in yourself?
Between me now and my childhood,
Yep.
is that what you're asking? Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
my childhood was miserable. So, and I'm having a great life now. It's kind of simple. It was wartime when I was born, and my father was away, and my mother didn't take good care of me, and I was ill, and I got injured, and I was taken away from my mother, and I lived in an institution for a while. So it was miserable. And now I am my own person. I live days that I really love. I am able to help other people. I feel balanced and good inside of myself.
That's
And
wonderful.
I've been privileged to learn what people need to do in order to get where I am right now. So
All
that's a
right.
big part of my life.
Yep. Yep, that's really good to know. Thank you so much for that insightful answer. So, when looking back at your younger self, what three words would you say to yourself and why?
Say what would I say to myself? What was that question? What
What are the three main words you would say to yourself in to your childhood if you look back to that person right now?
Oh, if I wanted to help her or
Yep.
to comfort her? Oh, I would say, well, I'd offer something of what I've learned in the meantime, which is this is a giant school that we're in, and all you have to do is learn whatever lessons are involved in your experiences, and as soon as you learn them, things will start getting better.
Okay. That's great to know. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to know the motivation you would give to your younger self. So, what do you enjoy most about mentoring others? Is it learning about them or helping them grow?
Helping them grow. Since I do perceive us to be in a giant school and we're all here to learn, and unfortunately, most people don't have that, excuse me, they don't have that concept. And so, usually, if we have problems or issues, we just freeze or we get scared or whatever. And the trick, of course, is to go, oh, this is happening. That means there's something to learn. Let me look at what it is and decide to learn it. You learn it as soon as you learn it. I mean, that fast, it's over, and you're free to have a better life, to feel better in your life.
Okay, that's great to know. Thank you so much for that articulated answer. So, what is the best tip you can give to someone if they are mentoring their friend or their close one?
Years ago, when I started, more than 50 years ago, when I started, I had been trained as a therapist, but people would come to see me and they would tell me their problems, and I'd sit there and go, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say. This is such a complicated problem, you know? And I figured I thought about it and I worked with it and I got some consultation and I figured out that most people don't have somebody to just listen to them. And listening means you're accepting them, you're loving them. And as soon as I started deciding, okay, I'm just going to listen, Then I started having ideas about how I could be of more help. So that's what I would recommend for anybody. Listen to one another. One of the skills of love is to have interest in what's going on with the other person. So if you ask somebody, tell me about this, you're loving them, and that automatically is going to make them feel a little bit better.
All right, that's great to know. Thank you so much for giving your relevant answer. So, what role does empathy play in mentoring?
A primary role. What empathy is all about is being able to put yourself in, to feel with another person. And I think that I told you my childhood was very difficult. I think that most therapists have problems in their childhood, and the reason for it is so that we have some idea of what it feels like to go through problems so we can help other people, and that's increasing empathy. So the ability to just not to be the same, not to take their place, but just to feel with them and go, oh, that's got to be hard. Oh, that's very difficult. Now, the other part of being a therapist is to let the other person have their own problem. A lot of therapists get burned, what we call burned out, and that's because they take the other people's problems home with them. And my reaction is, I'm here to help you. We're partners in helping you work things out, but this is your issue. This is your learning, and I don't take it home with me. And I've been doing this for 54 years without burnout.
Okay, that's really wonderful to know that you've been in this industry from the last 54 years. Wow, that's a really long time, I'd say.
I think so too.
That's great to know. So, how do you connect with such diverse audiences? Like you don't know who is going through what. So, what is your key to connection to these type of diverse audiences?
Being real, being honest, I think is really key. Not everybody likes that, but most audiences do. And also, a key, from my perspective, is to share things that are interesting or helpful or that people haven't known about before that can help them.
Okay, okay, that's good to know. So, how do you how do you decide? Like maybe I think so. You guys have different techniques of handling and discussing stuff with different people. So, how do you figure out those techniques? And if you have used that technique with someone else, what would the role of reusing be used in this?
Well, I don't work the same way a great number of other therapists work. So I don't really think of what I do as techniques. I have both a spiritual approach and an experiential, so that I've had experiences, and I have the empathy. So, for example, what therapists are taught to do is you come to me for help. I take a long history. I diagnose you. I say, this is what's wrong with you. And then I make a plan and I bring you along and we work the plan. That's the way therapy is traditionally taught to be done. All right. On the other hand, if you come to me, I believe that whatever is happening with a person in the moment is what they need to work on. So, my first question of you would be, what's bothering you? What are you feeling? Now, over these 54 years, I'm a recovered angry person. I found my husband left me with a small child uh, many years ago. After we had this small child, he decided he didn't want to be a father. And I got very angry when he did that, and I didn't realize that I was full of anger up to that point for all the things that had happened in my childhood. And I didn't want my child to grow up in all that anger, so I started looking for answers. What causes anger? Uh, what's the purpose of anger? Can we get rid of it? All those questions. And I looked around for about 10 years. I found out there weren't any answers because social scientists didn't study emotions separately from problems. If you were a schizophrenic, anger was involved, but we didn't study anger separately. And I started getting answers, and I started using those answers in my own life. And then when I had people come to me wanting help, I would ask them if they'd like to try what I had learned. And I found out, like in during COVID, many people who had worked with me up to 40 years previously came back. Let me have a checkup. Let me have. And what I found out is what they learned about emotions was still working for them. It's long lasting. So, another thing that I am looking at is emotions, because emotions, that what I discovered is that emotions are helping us with our learning. They give us clues on where to look to identify the lesson and then tell us what we need to do in order to learn the lesson. And I can give you an example about that if you'd like.
Yes, sure. I'd love to hear that.
Okay, so the easiest example to me is loneliness. At least where I am, people say, oh, if you're lonely, it's because you don't have enough people in your life and you need to connect more with other people. Well, what I've learned about emotions is that they are energy. And in energetic terms, loneliness is really telling us that we're sending more of our own personal energy out than bringing it back in. Or another way of understanding that is we're not loving ourselves enough. So, the easiest way to love ourselves is to do something for which we have a talent. I can dance, I can sing, I can write, I can talk with people, whatever I have a talent for. And as soon as I start using my talent, the energy of the loneliness just starts to go away. So, loneliness is telling us the message of loneliness is that we're not loving ourselves enough. We use that message and do the correction, the loneliness goes away.
Okay, that's really powerful to know that you guys you thank you so much for the easy example which you have set up, that if you are loneliness, that means that you don't love yourself much. That's
that, that you're
yeah.
not loving yourself. You may love yourself, but at the time, like we're trying to help other people, or we're trying to meet the demands of our friends or our teachers. So we're paying attention to them and not enough attention to ourselves.
Yep, that's true. That's true. That's also good to know. So I'd like to ask you that what changes have you seen in people who have worked with you later on?
Oh, people have changed their lives. Actually, this past Saturday in my life, I hired a young man. I did a podcast, and I hired him to help me in 2009. And he's now 41 years old. And his family had immigrated to the United States, and he didn't know English well. And he turned out to be the first person ever in all of history that has earned a degree at a college. That's what he did. But when I first met him, he wasn't a good learner and he wasn't doing well, and I both challenged him and I supported him. I figured he was a young person and that was something I could do, was to support him as a young person so he could have a better life. Well, he just got promoted to be the person who's in charge of his office in an international business, and he's got a fiance and his life is going really well. And he wrote me, he said, I am who I am today because of you. right? Because I challenged him and supported him at the same time. Or we could say I loved him, you know, not in
Yeah.
the way we usually think about, but I gave him a loving platform, and it's so
Yes.
wonderful. I hadn't seen him since 2009, and to see him at 41 years old being being successful, being having lots of energy. He has a wonderful fiance who also is very loving. It was really great to see that.
Yep, that's true. Um, so connection is key. Like when you connect with someone who you realize you can grow, you can bring their potential. You just you motivate him. You do anything so that he could go back to his path and he could like stay consistent.
Yes, and most of what I did was share what I knew and care about him. And that's what we can do. Relationships are very important, but one thing that people don't think a lot about is that the most important relationship is with myself. I have to use the only person I have any power over is me, and the only time I have power over me is in the present. And that's true for every one of us. So very often we've learned, oh, now listen, Hamzah, if you will change, I will have a better life. I can't do that. I can't make you change. What I can do is change myself, and then you either will fit with me in my change, or you'll need to change, or you'll need to get out. And most of us don't want to take the risk of losing people in our lives by really focusing on ourselves and maybe losing other people. But it's not a bad thing that we lose other people necessarily. It's sad, it can be difficult, but if we can grow together, we will stay together.
Yep, that's true. So, what do you think? What would be the future of emotional wellness?
Well, I think it's up to me. I'm working very hard to teach the world. Most people work too hard with emotions, and they think emotions are difficult. It is difficult to work with emotions, but the way to work with them is really very simple, just like I told you with loneliness. But we haven't had information that tells us how to work with them effectively. So if I were to tell you, go work with your anger, you might immediately think, oh, that's very difficult. I don't know if that's possible. Is it possible to not feel angry all the time, or, to not get angry about this? So we don't have enough information, and that's one of the reasons I'm here today is to talk about with the world that emotions are we're designed to be able to work with emotions. And the emotions are designed to help us. And while we're talking about that, there is no such thing in my view as a negative emotion. We tend to think of anger as a negative emotion, and that's like saying water in a river is negative energy. It's not, it's just energy.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Thank you so much for enhancing my information and letting know more about emotional wellness. So, when you see people, when people are lost emotionally in themselves or in anyhow they're lost emotionally, what should they do first? What would be your advice for them?
Well, everybody's situation is a little different, but the bottom line is that we have to get right with ourselves before we can get right with the rest of the world. So we need to stand back and take some time. Most people are still living manipulatively, and I'm about to give a speech at a conference in another 2 weeks on outgrowing manipulation. Everybody is born manipulative, where we have to have somebody else help us meet our needs. but we're supposed to outgrow it as we mature, and most people haven't done that. And so, one of the things about being manipulative is you're scared to spend time alone. Most people who are very manipulative can't spend more than 2 or 3 hours alone, and even then they're nervous. And if they are alone, they'll have their phone or music, or they'll be watching a movie or something, so they don't have to feel their aloneness. And that means then that we haven't gotten to know who we are. We keep staying away from who we are. And we came to this world to develop who we are. And so the more you're not paying attention to who you are, and you're not changing, and you're not growing, and you're not spending some time alone, the less successful you are in what you came to the earth to do.
Okay, that's great to know. Thank you so much for giving that well defined answer. So, what is the definition of who you are? What is its core meaning?
I don't quite understand your question. Ask it again, please.
Yep, I mean like as you mentioned just now about who you are. So, what
Mhm.
is the, like, you can say a little philosophy, if you know, about who you are, like what
Uh,
is this who you are?
so how do we know who we are, and
Yep.
what is that? Yes.
Yep.
Um, well, my learning is that we know deep inside of us. Actually, let me start back with early childhood. I have never known a little child who wasn't full of love, who didn't know what they wanted. They didn't hesitate to wake their parents up in the middle of the night going, I need this, I need that. And we're all born that way. So we're all born knowing ourselves. But then we get into the world, and we sometimes people tell us the way you are is not good, you have to change it. Sometimes we have an experience that's painful, and we say to ourselves, I'm not doing that again. And so what happens over time is we change away from who we are. And we do that during childhood. I call those changes our homework assignments for this our homework assignments for this lifetime. And I think that adulthood is designed for us to work on our homework assignments. And when you finish a homework assignment successfully, you get promoted, right? But most of us end up going over the same thing again and again and again because we don't get finished with the learning. All right. So, to answer your question, we already know who we are, and it's everybody's different, but we already know who we are when we come to this earth, but we run into the earth and the people here and get challenged in knowing who we are. And our job is to get back to who we are and to amplify that so we get better, so we become more. And that's different for each person. But the way you get there is by making yourself important, recognizing your job, and learning, dedicating yourself to learning.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing us and defining a little about the phrase who you are. So, thank you so much, Miss Eileen, for coming on this podcast and giving your very precious time. I'd like to ask for any advice you would like to give to my audience so that they could be inspired by your journey.
Yes, one of the things that I've been working with in the last few years is that most of us have been taught to live life backwards. For example, if I feel like I don't have enough love, I want to have somebody to love me. What most people have been taught that I've run into have been taught to do is I must go outside of me and find love outside of me. Well, the minute I say I don't have enough love, that means there's some kind of something missing inside of me. And the principle is that like attracts like. So if I take this me that's got something missing and I go out looking for somebody to love me, I'm going to find somebody who's got love missing inside of them too. And that makes it very difficult. What happens on the day when both of us are feeling that missing part and we want the other person to make us feel better? It's a terrible day for both of us, right? So, what I've learned is that we've been told we got to live from the outside in. Go find somebody, bring that love back. And in actuality, the way it works is we have to live from the inside out. If I feel like I don't have enough love, I need love myself. I need to give myself all the love that I can. And that's not always easy, particularly if you don't love yourself already. But by paying attention to it and asking the universe or a higher mind or whatever for help, we can get there. And what happens when you love yourself is you fill up with love. That love spills over onto the people around you, and it also gets reflected back from the world so that you're living in love. And I've been doing that myself for the last 10 years, 12 years. And I told you about my early childhood. It was empty of lots of love. And now, as I told you about this young man that came to visit me, my life is so full of love. I feel so good. I'm not sad or angry or upset about much of anything because I'm full of love, and that means that love is coming to me from outside as well. And that's what I would advise. Spend your time loving yourself. It's not selfish to do, it's what will give you the vehicle that you need to go through life and have and create a really good life for yourself.
Yep, that is true. Thank you so much for explaining a little about the emotion of finding a missing part in yourself, and by loving yourself and to spread around, and gradually it will be spread back to you. So thank you so much for clarifying on that, and thank you so much for your wonderful advice. I really appreciated your time and your advice and your answer to all of the questions. And lastly, Miss Eileen, I'd like to ask for your feedback. What did you think of the interview, and how were my questions to you?
Well, I've been curious about these interviews. Do you create the questions yourself, or are you also working with AI to create them?
Yes, I use AI to create the questions as well, and I do a little research about all of my guests, and also get to know about them
Right.
myself while using AI to get to know more about them.
Well, I I have I find or today I find you're I mean you still have to select the questions that AI comes back with, and I find that they're deeper than most people ask. When I had my podcast, I read people's book and then I made my own questions. And at that time, most people would who wanted to be interviewed would send out 10 questions. And every time they'd go to a different podcast, they'd answer the same questions over and over again. So my guests like to come to me for an interview because I ask different questions, and that has been the pleasure of this also. And the fact that you are responding, paraphrasing, you are actually giving me the feeling and the idea that you're actually listening to me and
Yep.
considering that I'm trying to tell everybody something new that they don't usually run into. That's very good for me. So thank you for that.
And thank you so much for giving your precious time. Again, it's an honor to host you. Thank you so much for coming up on Wired and Inspired. So, yes, everyone, she was my guest, Miss Eileen. So, it was a wonderful time chit chatting with her. I got to know a lot about her career and a lot about herself. And I love to know about people. And I also loved knowing about Miss Eileen. So, yes, guys, she was my guest for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys with another guest. Till then, keep doing great things and stay happy. And Allah Hafiz.